My name's Frank McElhinney and I'm from Glasgow in Scotland. The series that I'm showing in the exhibition here in Helsinki is called Milestone. It's medium format, black and white film, printed on fibre-based paper in the Darkroom. So what it is it's a series of 15 pictures that you'll see, all of the same thing, really. It's a volcanic rock, a volcanic plug. It's called the Ailsa Craig, that's its official name, but it has significance geographically because it is roughly halfway between Belfast in Ireland and Glasgow in Scotland. And for centuries, it's been a point of navigation for people moving between the two countries. And I imagine in my mind's eye all these many thousands of Irish people over, many years, viewing it on their passage and seeing it in different ways. So the series is not just about geography and history, geology. It's kind of about vision as well and memory.
My name is Jana Mizgina and I work mainly with analog and cameraless photographic processes, and my work is themed around notions of nature and culture. So the project I'm exhibiting is called Still Twitching. It's a series of photograms of taxidermy birds from 19th century, so essentially contact prints. And I have used a so-called chromoskedastic sabatier on them, but essentially the idea was to challenge the notion of what birds are supposed to look and how we classify them and recognize them.
My name is Elodie Greten and I am a French visual artist based in Vienna. Basically, the starting point of my work is always an image, and then it evolves in different approaches or different ways. So this work, Feeling Blue, is something that I created 2 years ago, actually, during a residency in Paris where I was during lockdown. So the technique that I use is the cyanotype. It's techniques where you mix two chemicals and then they become reactive to UV light, so sunlight basically. And I made bed sheets, pillowcase, and a duvet that had soaked into this chemical. And I would lie in the sun for 45 minutes. So basically what you can see, the bed that you can see at the bed sheets, this is like a self-portrait basically. The idea behind it was to question the commodification of artworks, the productivity of artists, to create a work where I was like inactive and the sun would be doing the work for me.
So my name's Leslie. I'm originally from Scotland, but I live in London. I guess for me, the most important subject that I'm really interested in is the trace. So a trace of a human touch, basically, that people imprint upon objects and things. When I was 27, I bought my first flat in London, which was a very small flat in a block of flats in Balham. And the resident who'd been there before me had lived there for about 50 years or so. I'm not quite sure the whole story of his life. But basically, when I bought it, the house was in total disrepair. And you could see on the walls all the traces of his life spent within that flat. So there was a lot of physical residue, such as things like dust, of his footprints worn into the carpet, as well as certain kind of poignant objects which were left behind. And from that, it's about trying to kind of figure out what this story was through a kind of my imagined narrative of this person's life, and that's the work that's being exhibited here.
The role analog process plays in my work is it gives me ability to approach my subject matter in a slower way, and I like to contemplate what I'm doing. Essentially when I make pictures, it's just a much slower process, so I have time to think about it, but also I love elements of chance in it, so sometimes the results are very unpredictable.
The materiality of analog is also something that is very close to my heart, so that's something that I'm really in love with. but it has to fit what I want to say. It has to be the perfect medium for that particular project.
I think working with the analog, especially the large format process, you know, because it's so slow, it's very expensive, and you don't know what you're getting. So it gives you that kind of distance between thinking about the image and then getting the result back. So there's a nice kind of space there to let the image grow and develop rather than just reacting to what you see on the back of the camera, which is a very different process and still fine. But I think with the analog one, especially with the large format, it really slows you down. You might only make 5 or 6 pictures in a day is really the maximum. So with that, you're always trying to get it right the first time and really think about what I'm trying to capture. And it's always about trying to make it work in that one frame.
The thing that's different about it, obviously, in a way, from digital, it's far more material, it's far more hands-on, you know, you've got your hands in the chemicals. But that very physical engagement with the process is important, I think, for what the end result is going to be in the work. Working with creative processes that are analog, I think is good for us as humans in so many ways, not just the creative way, but in terms of the balance of you know, how we feel, act and live our lives.
I would say really in Vienna there is a comeback of analog processes and also of young photographers coming to analog or discovering photography through analog. So we have a few festivals that's been really focusing on the process and analog photography. There is the Rotlicht Festival that's been created last year. So I guess these kind of practices are kind of blooming nowadays. There's really like a circle moment that's going back to that kind of materiality of the photography.
These processes are evolving, and there's lots of kind of experimentation with a bit more environmentally friendly and environmentally conscious ways of working as well, and where these chemicals go and how we approach them. And yeah, so it's kind of a combination between old and new, which I think is very interesting.
I mean, I think in London it's really had a massive resurgence. There's so many commercial, large-scale colour darkrooms that have really blossomed over the last 10 years. They've really come to life in a major way, and there's a lot of community-led darkroom projects there. There's the older kind of labs who've been there doing it for a very, very long time and have that established history, and it's nice to see them be able to bring that knowledge to a new generation, which is really great. I think especially in the last 10 years, it's really come back in a strong way.
People think of it as like historic and of the past. I don't think of it that way at all. I think there's so many things that have never been tried before, and alongside and together with digital technology, it's just adding to this range of tools that photographers and artists can work with and do creative things with.